And I already have church windows open and accounting open to save us some time. Let's get a little introductory information out of the way. If it's your first time using the GoToWebinar toolbar, along the side is a little arrow that you can click on, and that will minimize it so it's not blocking what I'm showing you on screen. To open it back up, just click that little arrow. Also within the panel is a question panel, or the toolbar. There is a question panel, and I won't be unmuting people, but you can type questions within the question panel. And Josh is also in the room, and he will be watching for your questions and answering those as I present the material. And then at the end, I will just open the floor for people to type in more questions, which those I will read out loud and just answer for everyone out loud. Today's material we are taking right from one of our workbooks, and let me show you. If you own the workbooks, you could turn to those pages if you like. If you're interested in buying the workbooks and want to know which book it is coming from, if you go to our website and click on Beginning and then choose Training Workbooks, the material for today is coming from the Accounting 202 workbook, and it starts on page 2 with other transactions. So it's very beginning of the book, and we're going to go through page 7, well, top of page 8. So really what we're looking at today is other transactions. It's called advanced transactions, but I don't know that they're really hard or advanced. I don't consider them necessarily advanced. It's just transactions you probably don't use as often. So to me, they're more like other transactions, like the topic in the workbook. All right, let me close the internet here. And let's go ahead and take a look at the material. Make sure, okay. For some reason I thought I hadn't unmuted myself all the way, and I wanted to just make sure my audio was going there. All right, so page 2, other transactions, begins with transfers. Transfers are a way to move money between accounts. The big thing is they have to be like accounts or the same type of account. You can't use a transfer to move money between a number 1 asset and a number 3 fund. Transfers are done between like accounts, like asset to asset, a number 1 account to another number 1 account, liability to liability, and so on. Let's take a look at the screen. Now first, I opened up accounting. If you're new to the program, all I did was click on the word accounting. I had it already open for us to save time for it loading everything. For transfers, we're going to click on transactions, and then right here, the button transfer. It is different from transfer donations. That's to move money from donations into accounting. We are simply talking about transfers between accounts in accounting. First thing you have to do is choose the date occurred, and that will be the date that it's going to affect the balances in church windows and on your reports. We'll just go with today's date for today, but we could change that by either typing in the box or clicking the down arrow and choosing from the calendar. The from account, that is the account we are going to be taking the money from, and the to account is the account we will move the money to. Middle of page 2 shows you a screenshot of what we're looking at right now, the enter transfer screen. If we go ahead and look at page 3, if you're following along in the book, it discusses the to account. Let me just click here and let you look. In the drop-down list, it starts alphabetically. And we can see it's going through our vendors because it is going alphabetic. We also have, if you own accounts receivable, your accounts receivable clients are within there as well. And then it moves on to my 1s and 2s and 3s and so on. So the drop-down list, I could select my account right from the drop-down list, or I'm going to do what we see up at the top of page 3. We're going to move money from an income account, from one income account to another. So I could start typing the number of the account. I want my general tithes and offering, 4.10, or I could start typing the name. And notice as I'm typing, it's narrowing down to what I type. I can use my arrow key to arrow down to that if I don't want to use my mouse, and then hit tab to move over to my to account. In my to account, I want to move money over to the loose offering, so I can start typing that. Or I could type the number, or I could click the down arrow and select it from the drop-down list. And then once I have the account showing I need, if I chose to type, then I can just hit tab to move to the next space. We're going to move money from our general tithes over to loose offering. Whoops, we'll move over 500. Notice when I'm moving money between my income accounts, and these accounts are the accounts that are totaling up how much income I'm bringing in during the year. There is no payment method because we don't create a payment from one of our income accounts. However, I'll show you when we get to assets that does open up. So we'll just hit tab. You could enter any comments if you wanted. And then I can hit on my keyboard Control and plus, and that adds it to the batch. Or I can click the little plus, done, add to batch. Now, you might need to move money between an asset account rather than an income. To do that, we would do the same thing to find our accounts, either by name or number, the drop-down list. So we'll look for a Huntington Bank checking, tab over to the to account. We're going to move some money into our savings. So I'll select my Fifth Third savings, hit tab, and we'll move 500 there. Notice when I chose the asset account, the program knew this is my real money. This account represents what's in my checking and my savings, and it's going to allow me to choose a payment method. So here I could do manual check, computer, cash, or EFT. Let's go ahead and we'll do computer check, and I'll show you after we post this. We'll take a look over and print checks. We can hit tab to move through. Now, if I had chosen manual check, I would need to go ahead and put my check or reference number in right now. And then if I wanted this to print on a deposit slip out of church windows, I would put a check and print on deposit slip. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do a computer check though, so we can look really quickly and print checks. I could add comments if I like. If I entered all this in error, I could click clear transaction and it would clear everything on the screen. We want to add this to the batch, so I'll go ahead and click done, add to batch. And there, this transfer is going to move money between my asset accounts. Now, you might need to, if you look at the top of page 4, it gives you a word of caution about transfers. The money in your number one asset accounts, you and your church, you decide how you are spreading that over your funds. Your Citibank or Huntington Bank checking, or your main checking account, maybe you just have one checking account and all that money is spread over multiple fund or number 3 accounts. Or maybe you have multiple checking accounts and each of those checking accounts should have the same balance as a specific fund in church windows, a 3 account. If your checking account also should have the same balance as your fund or 3 account, then you might also need to do a fund-to-fund transfer when you move money between your assets. The program is not going to automatically move anything other than the money in these assets. So let's just say in this church, the money in our Huntington Bank checking, that is our general tithes and offering or our general operating fund. Whereas what we have in our savings right now, that's our education building money. So we need to move money between our funds as well. So we'll go up to our from account and find our general operating fund. And then in the to account, we're going to find the building fund balance account. Or I'm sorry, education. I said education building fund. And we're also going to move $500 between those funds because in our church, those funds keep these same totals as the asset accounts mentioned. All right. Now I'll go ahead and click Done, Add to Batch. And you can keep adding any more transfers. If you need more, you can add those. I could have posted after each one of these. I just wanted for today's time, just go ahead and add them all at once and then we'll post them. Really quickly, I could, before I hit post, when I have things in the batch, I can click Show Running Balance, and that brings up a little window that shows me all of the accounts that I've put into the batch, the current balance in those accounts, the amount that is getting added or subtracted, the parentheses mean a negative, and then the adjusted balance. This will be the balance in those accounts if I were to hit post. So we really need to take a look at our general operating fund balance here. We have that at a negative. I'm not sure what's going on there, but definitely would want to investigate that. So I can go ahead now. I'm going to close this and I'm going to hit post. And it gives me the transaction numbers and asks if I'd like to print. If I say yes, I want to print. Brings up the transfer transaction screen where I can choose what columns I'd like and the order I want them in. Could adjust my fonts if I needed. And then if I were to hit print, it brings up a nice report showing exactly what transfers I just posted. Now, if you did a computer check, then after we print that out, if you choose to print, we could then go to print checks. And here we have, test bank name. We have a check waiting. Huntington Bank has a check that's waiting to go out. We could go ahead and print that after we put our starting check number in. Real quick thing I'll show you, since we have a test bank name there. If you ever come into print checks and find the vendor name or the payee name is incorrect, if we go over to Manage Accounts and View, here if I look over at my bank name, I'm going to have to investigate. I'm not sure why that was saying test. That was odd. I'm going to have to invest. Oh, it was the Fifth Third. Maybe that was it. Here we go. Our Fifth Third savings over to the right where it says bank name, we have test in there. So if I change that to Fifth Third savings, close out of here. Now if I go back to print checks, we see it will be addressed to the payee of Fifth Third Savings. So I could print that out, take that over to actually do the transfer. Now you could do it online. You could do an EFT if your bank allows that, and then I would just mark my transfer as an EFT. All right. Now let's take a look at page 5. I'm going to move on to journal entry transactions. There's a little more information about journal entries on page 5, an effects of debits and credits chart that I've been working with accounting since 2007, but I still have that cut out at my desk and up on my cubicle wall, just to remind myself of what goes up and down for debits and credits. Journal entry, that is found by going to Transactions, Other, and choosing the last option here, Journal Entry Transaction. A journal entry is meant for when you're moving money between non-like accounts, like from an income to an expense, or an asset to a liability, or anything that's a non-like account. If it's the same type of account, you can use a transfer to move that money, but anything else that can't be handled with an actual transaction or a transfer, you can use a journal entry for that. However, with the journal entry, you do need to know what you're going to debit and what you're going to credit. So that's where it's good to have that effects of debits and credits chart. And you could that's probably on our website. We can take a look here in a minute. The premise here at the bottom of 5 is a church received a gift of $1,000 for noodle making equipment to purchase a noodle making machine. The money was sent temporarily into an income account for other miscellaneous income. Now they've decided to purchase the machine, and the treasurer wants to move the income into the actual expense account, and that's going to wash out the expense of the machine. So it'll offset that expense. So to move that money from an income to an expense, we're going to use a journal entry. Page 6 shows you a blank journal entry screen, which you can see right now on my screen. Upper left is date occurred, and you're going to choose the date you want to see that affecting your treasurer's report and balance sheets and any of your reports. So we'll go ahead and pick, we did this Monday, we're a little behind. We can add transaction comments if we like. Those will show up for the entire transaction, whereas if we were to add line item comments, those would show up specific to each account we choose. Let's go ahead and go down to accounts, and we're going to choose our other miscellaneous income because that is where we originally put the money. And We're going to tab over to credit, because a credit to an income account is going to increase it. Actually, I'm looking at the drawing here. Oops, I had it backwards. I'm sorry. We want to debit it because we're going to decrease our income. So we'll choose $1,000 debit. And we can also put comments if we like for noodle machine. And now we're going to hit the plus at the end of the line so it drops down our first line. And then we'll choose our building fund expense because we're giving them, wait a minute, my drawing here. One second. Oh, yep, that is the expense account we need, the building fund. So we'll go down to building fund expense, and because I didn't click right in that box, that's why it's giving me those X's. It's telling me that I need to have a debit or credit on this line. So I'll put in 1,000, and I want that to show for both accounts, so I'll add comments for that as well. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click Done Add to Batch to add that to my unposted journal entry batch. Now we can see it in the bottom half of the screen. And if you want to see the transaction, we can click the plus at the beginning and it shows me my debits and credits. And before I post that, if I want to make sure that I've chosen my debits and credits correctly, now to me they make sense for income and expense accounts. It's when you get to assets that are a little more complicated, I think. Unfortunately, I chose accounts that we had $0 in, so it's showing both of these going negative. But had they had money in them, we would see them not going negative. But once they post the expenses to this actual building fund expense account, it is going to go up because expenses will increase as we add more to an expense account. But here we posted income, which brought it back down. So once they start posting those expenses for the noodle machine to that building fund expense, we should see that go up to 0. All right. That is all I wanted to show you for transfers and journal entries. Oops, let me go ahead. I forgot. Let's go ahead and hit post. When we post it, just like with the transfers, it gives me the transaction number and asks if I want to print. If I say yes, then it brings up the journal entry transaction screen where I can choose what columns I'd like and the order and the size. And then if I hit print, it brings up a report showing exactly what I just posted in that journal entry. All right. So that is the end of what I wanted to show you, and pages 2 through 7 of the transfers and journal entries in that workbook, Accounting 202. Are there any questions? Someone said, so the main difference between transfers and journal entries are transfers are between like accounts and journal entries can be between unlike accounts. Correct. You could use a journal entry to move money from asset to asset, but with the journal entry, you do have to know what you're debiting and what you're crediting. Transfers, I think, are easier just because, well, it's like accounts, and you're telling it what account you're taking it from, and then what account you want to move it to. You don't have to decide what's debiting and crediting. It knows what is debited and what is credited based on what you choose for to and from. I do not have any more to show you. If you have more questions, go ahead and type those in. If not, then you can go ahead and exit the room just using the X in the upper right of the toolbar. Thanks for attending. Everybody have a great day.